Today you've done well to be here in what people have called one of the biggest heat waves that Britain has ever experienced, which really makes me laugh. Yeah, one day and it's about 25 degrees. And I'm just like, oh, it's not actually that bad. And also with Father's Day and Ocean Fest as well, you've done really well to be here, but no one wants to go to Ocean Fest because it's too expensive. But we're going to talk about something really exciting today, which is wonderful. And much of what I'll say today, there's a book that's come out called Goliath Must Fall, and it's by Louis Giglio, and it's a really good book. And part of what we're saying today, not everything, I've stolen from him, just in case he happens to stumble across the A2J Facebook page and then hear me talking and think, plagiarism. He can't now because I've acknowledged him. But if you've got a Bible, find Psalm 23 now, because that would be a good place, and then just keep it open on Psalm 23. It's probably the most famous psalm. Thank you, Tim. There's a musical rendition of Psalm 23 coming out. It's really lovely. We even had a musical rendition of it this morning. But before we get on to Psalm 23, I want to remind you of a story that you guys will know. David and Goliath. I'll tell it very briefly. But David is anointed to be king. He's to be the future king of Israel. He's just a shepherd boy, though, at the moment. And his brothers are away fighting for Israel, the Israelites against the Philistines. David goes to visit them. He essentially goes to take them some food. Whilst he was there, he sees the situation. The situation is this: Israelites terrified. Philistines not terrified because they've got a 9-foot-tall giant on their side, which does help, doesn't it? And Goliath basically comes out every day for 40 days, always 40 in a row, wouldn't it? And taunts them. And he stands there and says, come on, someone take me on. If you beat me, you defeat all the Philistines. But if I beat you, we beat all the Israelites. They're crippled by fear. No one wants to go near him. David sees it. It's like, I'll do it. And everyone's like, don't be an idiot, David. You're just a shepherd boy. You're just a small kid. You're not going to be able to. But he's like, I'll do it. The Lord is with me, and he'll do it. So he picks up his sling, gets some stones, and goes out onto the battlefield. Goliath sees him coming towards him. Goliath is not happy with the fact that the Israelites have sent their mighty warrior, a small boy, out to attack him. And he's like, oh, this makes me really angry. That's me paraphrasing his words. And so he's like, right, I'll just kill this little runt of a boy. David's there, and he's like, oh, here he comes. He's going towards me. So David does something that I wouldn't probably do, even if I was trained in some sort of battle, which David wasn't, against a trained 9-foot killer. I wouldn't be like, let's run at him. And he does this. He runs at him with his sling. And as he's running at him, he probably looks at Goliath and thinks he's such a big target, I can't even miss. And as he's going towards him, I like to think that Goliath's forehead just got bigger and bigger and bigger as he was going towards him. And as David's going along with his sling, he's like, I think I can hit that. As I go at him, conks him right on the head. Goliath goes down. Then David gets Goliath's sword out and chops his head off, as you would expect. And then he's just like, job done. 1 Samuel 17, verse 50, just summarizes it like this. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. Without a sword in his hand, he struck down the Philistine and killed him. Just a shepherd boy. In a matter of hours, what the whole Israelite army couldn't do, a shepherd turns up and does. Jesus said in John chapter 10, verse 11, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. You see, your shepherd, Jesus, can do the same thing in your life as what David did for the Israelites. He can strike down giants. We're going to focus mainly, as I said, on Psalm 23. So if you've still got your finger in Psalm 23, brilliant. If you've looked down, you're like, oh, no, I've shut it. Now's the time to find it again. And I'm just going to read it from NIV, but your version may well be very similar, but it's only a short psalm. Probably, as I said, the most famous psalm out there. It says this: The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table for me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. There's one verse within that, if I'm honest, it always confused me slightly. And it's verse 5. You prepare a table for me. So he's talking about God. God prepares a table for me in the presence of my enemies. And you read that and you think, like, what does that really mean? And what it actually means is that Jesus, our Savior, our King, our Lord, our Shepherd, promises to lead us, guide us, protect us, not in the absence of our enemies and the giants in our lives, but actually in the very presence of them. Imagine it, right there in the midst of battle, sitting down and eating. Like, just picture the scene. I don't know, like the sort of film you picture when you think of a large battle. It may be, if you're kind of like a Last Samurai kind of person or a gladiator. For most people, it's probably something like a Lord of the Rings where you just have crazy huge fights going on. Imagine you're in the midst of one of those. Some of you fighting for good, some are evil. No, it's what I'd say. Imagine you're in the midst of one of those fights. And God puts a table in front of you with a load of food and says, just sit down and eat. Imagine just being like, guys, everyone just put your swords down, get your sporks. We're going to have some food together. You know, if I'm in that situation, I'm someone in the army, I'm just like, you know what, Jesus, now's not really the time, and I'm not particularly hungry, to be quite frank with you, because they're trying to kill me. And it would be a little bit of a problem for me. I don't know how I deal with it. But what it's saying is that when pressures come, when darkness comes, when struggles come, your great shepherd provides all you need. Not just to survive, not just to get by, but actually to thrive in a situation. And you might think, oh, what do you mean by like pressures and struggles? Well, they can be anything. Could be stress, can be depression, could be anger, could be issues of sin, could be issues in your family, could be pain, can be anything in your life. Anything that you look at and you think, I don't know if I can defeat this. I don't know if I can deal with this on my own. And if you haven't ever gone through something like that, you will. Like, you will go through something that will leave you in that situation. And you see, guys, we have an enemy. And he's an enemy who loves to steal, kill, and destroy. An enemy who actually, and we'll look more specifically at the enemy and his tactics a little bit next week and how to defeat that. An enemy, the devil, Satan, who looks for cracks in your life, cracks in your heart, cracks in your mindset into which he can insert himself in his way of thinking. And if you don't stop him, he will join you at that same table. If you don't stop him, he will come and sit with you at the table in the midst of the battle with you, and will do the opposite to what God is doing already with you. I want to read you a little bit from a book. Amy, what's the book called? I don't even know what it's called. You don't know either? No, never mind. It's a good book, though. If you want to know more about the book, then talk to Amy, because it's her book. But I want to read you a little bit from this book. And I've just got it on my phone. So it's about our thoughts and about our choices within our thoughts. It says this. Some people think it is God's responsibility to renew our minds, and that our job is to sit passively by and let it happen without exerting any effort. Ariana Walker, CEO of Mercy UK, tells of a dream she had during a different time of her life, a difficult time of her life. This God-given dream helped her to understand the importance of being responsible for what goes on inside her mind, instead of assuming that God will do it all for us. The dream started as she was reading Psalm 23, verse 5, just before she went to bed. You prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies. In the dream, she saw herself sitting at a large, round dining table in a restaurant. Around the table were her guests: faith, hope, love, joy, peace, wisdom, and strength. They chatted, laughed, and sang together like the good friends they were. There was a scene of joy, fellowship, and friendship. As Ariana watched the scene in her dream, she became aware of three figures stood over in the shadows. Wondering who they were, she felt the Spirit of God tell her that they were her enemies: fear, worry, and unbelief. These enemies stared at her with such hatred that it sent a cold ripple down her body. She asked God, why are they here? They don't belong in this place. And he answered, this restaurant, like your life, is open to the public. Life on earth is an open space that can sometimes be visited by enemies. But who sits at your table is by invitation only. Even in her dream, the truth of this statement hit her like a ton of bricks. As she continued to observe the scene, she saw herself become distracted by the figures at the bar. Each time she would steal a glance in their direction or cease the conversation with her companions, she could see them move towards her. Finally, fear stood directly behind the seat of faith. And the entire scene stood still. Everyone went quiet. The tension was palpable in the air as both fear and faith looked her directly in the eyes. And then she heard the voice of God. There are no more seats at your table, and faith will not share her seat with fear. Choose your companions wisely. Ariana woke up and realized the battle she faced would be won and lost in her mind and with her thoughts. Our external world will always be open to the presence of our enemies. But what goes on inside our own heads, our thoughts and our beliefs, is within our area of responsibility to manage and direct. God will help us if we ask him, but he will not usurp our authority and brainwash us. And it kind of goes on. But when I read this, and Amy told me about it a while back, I realized it's very similar. Was it fear, worry, and unbelief are the things that the devil, the enemy, will want to insert into your life. Things like faith, hope, and love are the things which Jesus brings to the table. You see, if the enemy's at your table of your life, you'll never be free from your enemies. You'll never be free from the giants in your life. You'll never be free from past hurts. Your confidence in God will begin to be eroded. He'll tell you that you're all alone in the battle, that you have no chance of seeing the giants fall, that you're trapped. He'll try and convince you that you won't make it through the valley. He'll spin your head around. Instead of your eyes being fixed on Jesus, your eyes will start to take in that the fact that you are surrounded by problems. He'll tempt you with the lie that there's something better at another table and that God is holding out on you. The choice is, who do you believe and who are you listening to? Who's the loudest voiced? Who's the clearest voiced? Who's the realest voice to you? You see, David went through crazy hardships in his life, loads of troubles. But he states with confidence in verse 4 of Psalm 23, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you, God, are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You see, he knew that even though he faced hardships, troubles, problems, whatever it might be in his life, he's like, God's got everything under control. In the dark times and the hardest times, God is by my side. And as I walk through the valley with him, he will never leave me. He knew that him plus God is always a majority. And you see, guys, you can have this same trust as David. But one thing to have this trust is you need to refuse to let the enemy sit at the table. You can choose what goes into your heart and your mind and your life. You choose what you listen to. You choose who you invite to the table. And if I'm honest, like our minds and the way that we live our lives are a little bit like what I like to call the toilet principle. If you put junk in, you'll get junk out. If you constantly eat junk, your toilet habits will not be healthy and will not smell rosy. If you eat healthier, actually it will help you. But actually, if we put junk into our lives, like with what we watch, what we listen to, what we believe is true, the junk that goes into our lives means junk will start to come out of our lives. You see, the shepherd, Jesus Christ, has promised to lead you through the valley. He's promised he'll always be with you. He's promised he knows best for you. And he's promised that you are his beloved child and he will take care of you. I love the name that in Revelation chapter 5 it gives for Jesus. It calls Jesus the Lion of Judah. You're like, oh, that's where the song comes from. Really what it's saying is that Jesus is the Lion of Judah. His roar rules the nations. His voice shatters the enemy. There is no contest. There is no competition when it comes to the enemy versus God. You know, it's not a yin and yang kind of thing. It's like, oh, you know, they're both quite strong. No, like enemy created by God. God never created. All powerful. It's not like even a close match. And I love the verse in God's word where it says that one day every knee will bow before Jesus. And you know, I kind of hope I'm around on that day to see with my own eyes. I don't know how it will be exactly, but when Jesus returns, every knee will bow in heaven and on earth. The devil's on this earth. I want to be there and be there in that moment where I see the prince of this world and the prince of darkness and the liar and the thief and the one that destroys so many lives through religion and illness and depression and whatever else it might be. I just want to be in that place where I just see him. He doesn't want to bow the knee to Jesus, but he has to. And he's like, oh, you're Lord. Like, that's a crazy moment because he has no power over God. I love the books and, in fact, the films, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I actually this week looked back on the old TV series of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe from the 90s. And my word, I used to think it was so good. And I looked at a bit of an episode on YouTube and I realized it was so bad. Because Aslan doesn't actually move his mouth. He sort of almost telepathy sort of just goes, hello, children. Like this, and it's really weird. And then the best thing is the beavers. The beavers in it. They're just guys dressed up with like black faces and with like these teeth inserted into their mouths. It's worth a look on YouTube. But I love the book, Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. And I love the part with the beavers in where Mr. Beaver talks about Aslan. And Aslan is this picture of Jesus. And he says this, safe, said Mr. Beaver. Don't you hear what Mrs. Beaver tells you? Who said anything about safe? Of course he isn't safe, but he's good. He's the king, I tell you. And then later on in the same book it says, wrong will be right when Aslan comes in sight. At the sound of his roar, sorrows will be no more. When he bares his teeth, the winter meets its death. And when he shakes his mane, we shall have spring again. You see, with the picture that it's painting is that even the shake of the lion's mane brings change and healing and transformation. It's the same with God. He's that powerful. The same with Jesus, our shepherd. And very simply, as we come to finish tonight, the question is this: who's at your table? Like, whose voice are you listening to in your life? Who's shaping your life? Who shapes your thoughts? Who shapes your actions? How has the enemy attempted to work his way into your heart, into your life, into your thinking? Have you allowed him to sit at the table, influence you in certain areas of your life? I want us to take a moment, maybe where we just close our eyes before we just continue. Maybe we could all just close our eyes for a moment. And I want you to ask God a very specific question and trust that his Spirit, who is present here, will speak to you. Ask God to show you who's at the table of your life. Just very simply say, God, who's at the table of my life? Are you there? Is the enemy there? Are things like fear and unbelief there? God, who's at the table? And just for a minute or so, we'll just be silent. I just want you to ask God that question and just wait on him. Because, guys, this is really important. Because who's speaking into your life? I hear so many people that are Christians say so many things about their life and who they are that is just a lie of the devil. You know, even when we say something that seems pretty harmless, like, oh, I am stupid. If you say that out loud, you're backing up what the devil says about you, wants you to believe. If you ever look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, oh, I'm ugly. If you ever say that out loud, you're backing up what the devil wants you to think about yourself. Guys, what's Jesus' place in your current battles? And you can open your eyes again in case you fall off to sleep. What's Jesus' place in your current battles? Is he on the sidelines? Is he like the manager or the over-enthusiastic parent on the sidelines, just cheering you on, saying, go on, go on, go on? I remember actually doing a football thing once. No, I tell a lie. It was a rugby thing, Tag Rugby Festival. And I remember refereeing this game. And throughout the whole game, there was one woman there. Let's call her a rotund lady. She was on the sidelines, and she just yelled at her kid. I believe he was called Darren. And reason I remember his name is because she did not stop shouting his name. She was like, Darren, get it, Darren, Darren, pass it, tackle him, Darren, Darren, Darren. And like, by the end of the game, like, I wanted Darren to do well, bless him. But he wasn't the greatest rugby player in the world, so he did struggle. But do you see Jesus a little bit like that? He's just shouting from the sidelines. I mean, that's okay, but it's not the best. Is he the person who's giving you advice? You know, like the halftime team talk in your life. Is he the person who actually you play a bit of a tag team with Jesus? When life's easy, you're like, out you go, Jesus, I'll take this part. But when life gets tough and you start to come into some problems, you're like, actually, Jesus, I need to tag you back in because I can't cope now. Or actually, is the picture of how you are with Jesus in your current battles, in your life right now, I just want to sit with you. I just want to sit in your presence, Jesus, and you will fight for me. You see, Jesus will provide for you during different struggles of your life, not just so you just survive but thrive. But you have to keep your focus on him. Let me just give you 2 quick stories from my life. One that wasn't so good and one that was good. When I was younger, most of you would have heard me say before, would have heard it many times before, that when I was 14, I had ME and I was ill. And I was ill for 18 months. I was 14 years of age. And to be honest with you, I was a Christian, but I was struggling. And I struggled more and more and more as I was ill. And I didn't really leave the house that much. And people came and prayed for me and my friends came over, but it was not the same. And to be honest, in my relationship with God, I was like, God, you've abandoned me. I see everyone coming around and praying for me, but I don't get better. And at that age, if I'm honest, I start to listen to the lies that the enemy start to say to me that was like, you'll never get better. Maybe God doesn't love you. Maybe he's not even real. Maybe everyone's mistaken. And I started to believe these lies. And if I'm honest, after I got well again, for the next 2.5 years maybe of my teenage life, I just drifted. And I never denied my faith, but I played no part real in my life. Because I believed the lies of the enemy, and he had a seat at my table, and there was some hold he had. God, by his grace and his mercy, drew me back, which is amazing. Another time in my life, I remember suffering heartbreak. And you know, if you've ever suffered heartbreak, you go through that sort of thought in your mind that you think, there must be something wrong with me. And you know, I did what I suspect most guys or girls would do. They look for attention from the opposite gender because they're like, well, I've been hurt in some way. There must be something wrong with me. So I need affirmation from other people that there isn't something wrong with me. So as long as they give me attention, I'll be okay. I started down that route a little. Just in mindset. But actually, I started also to listen to God. And God said, there's nothing wrong with you per se, apart from what I'm going to fix. I'm going to heal your heart. I'm going to change the parts of your character that need to be changed. Live life with me. And God built me up again. He made me stronger in him than I was before. He restored my soul. And in time, he provided me with something much greater than I ever thought I could have had in the beginning. You see, guys, when we focus less on the giants and the problems in our lives and focus more on the only one that can fully help us, things change. You focus on the one that can deliver you, restore you. You focus on the fact that he is with you. I want to encourage you. If you're in the midst of a hard time, there are giants in your life, struggles in your life. I encourage you more than ever on this Father's Day, sit with your Heavenly Father. Enjoy his presence. Go to him when you are weary and burdened. In his promises, I will give you rest. And you can move forward through the valley with your shepherd into the victory he has for you. Watch as you focus on him, the giants fall away. And guys, we want to pray tonight that God would really speak to us and meet with us and transform us in any way that he wants. So why don't we stand where we are? That would be great, because otherwise you peel yourself off the fat boys. Some of you may leave a good amount of fluid behind. But we're just going to pray and ask God just to meet with us and speak to us tonight.